Let's talk about safety and then the cleanup process in the ceramic studio. So your lesson objectives are to identify possible health concerns when working with clay and what you can do to stay safe, and also to explain the importance of following procedures for cleaning up appropriately and efficiently in the ceramic studio. So why do we need to minimize clay dust? So clay creates dust. That's not good because the inhalation of dust of any clay or glazed materials is dangerous for our lungs. So don't disturb the dust. What is the main health concern when working with clay? It's that dry clay dust. It's the biggest health concern or threat to us. That dry clay produces dust that contains silica. Silica is harmful to breathe in. Silica comes from silicone. It's a building material. We find it in rocks, marble, sandstone. It's used in lots of different construction materials. And if we keep breathing in this silica over time, like over a course of 10 years or more, you can actually develop chronic silicosis of the lungs. It's a serious health concern. Now, you are okay. The amount of time you're working with the clay, you'll be fine. But for me, your teacher, I am the most in danger of developing this chronic health issue with my lungs. I want to stay safe. I want you to stay safe. So this is why we need to clean up properly. So in terms of clay in the classroom, where does that clay dust come from? Well, if we drop clay scraps on the floor, they dry out, we step on it, it turns to dust, it's pulverized, and it's brushed into the air, and we breathe it in. That's where that clay dust really comes from and how it gets spread around. Especially if we're taking bone dry clay and we're sanding it, that's not good because that sanded dust can also be breathed in. Again, it's that silica which is dangerous. So what's the best way to minimize the spread and exposure of clay dust? Maintaining a clean workspace. Using wet sponges, wet paper towels when we're cleaning up. We always do a second pass as well to pick up any residue. So how do you protect yourself and others? Well, we don't want to have any dry clay out. That's why we want to keep our clay moist when we're working with it. We want to clean all tools with a damp sponge. That's why we have water bottles and sponges next to the sinks. We don't want to brush clay to the ground when we're cleaning up. If we have to, we can scoot it onto our hands and then put that in the trash. Always wash your hands after working with the clay, and do not eat while working with clay because you don't want to end up ingesting any of that dust. And do not blow clay dust off your desk, such as this. If I see you doing this, I'm going to have a big issue and a big conversation with you because that is not okay. Blowing the dust off the table or clapping your hands and you can see all the dust flying around, that is super not safe. All right, so what's the cleanup process in the ceramic studio, right? It's cleanup time, right? It's time to clean up. What do we do? So during cleanup time, you are responsible for cleaning all tools and equipment that you've used, including the tools in your pottery toolkit. We need to return all the tools to the proper places, so if you borrowed something, please return it. We need to clean up and wipe off your workspace, properly put away and store your artwork and your tools. And doing all of this helps maintain a safe work environment. If you fail to clean up properly, I'll be sad and disappointed. We don't want that to happen. You may lose studio habit points because, hello, you're not taking care of the studio. I might have to call home and have a conversation of what's going on and why you're having trouble cleaning up. And then, I might make you clean up something that you really don't want to clean up. So what should I do first, right? What do I do first? There's a lot going on. So I suggest collecting all the pottery tools, including slip brushes, and washing them in the sink. We want to make sure that we collect all of the tools that we're working with. So that includes fettling knives and even your slip brush. And we're going to actually take these tools and wash them in the sink. So when we wash our tools in the sink, you can actually use your small little sponge in your toolkit to actually clean your tools. So you can have water running, but just be aware that we want to make sure that all of the clay residue is ending up inside the buckets in the sink. I'm at the small sink right now, but you see how I can take my little sponge and actually clean off
the clay. If you don't clean off your tools, they will get really yucky over time. So your slip brush, this might be a pain to clean, okay? If you don't wash your slip brush, it's going to look really yucky and the slip just kind of gets stuck on there. So what you should do is actually just swish it around in the water. Just get rid of some of that extra clay. So now this is easier for other people to use. So when you're actually cleaning up at these sinks, it's the same thing. We want to make sure that all of this clay residue ends up in the bucket. We don't want it to go down the sink because over time the clay will clog the sink. So we want to make sure all the water, anything you're doing, once you're washing your hands, any cleaning you're doing, make sure all the water is ending up in the buckets inside the sink. So as you can see here, we have this area. This is where we typically store tools that we share. So make sure after you clean your tools that we're actually putting them back where they belong. Please don't put them in your toolkit because other people need to share these tools. So if you have extra clay, right, like I've got this extra clay here, what do I do with it? I need to save it in a Ziploc bag. You should have a Ziploc bag. These are gallon-sized bags. If you don't have a Ziploc bag, ask Miss J for one, but you're going to put your clay inside your Ziploc bag. Make sure you actually seal it because air is going to make your clay dry out, and we don't want that to happen. Whatever clay project you're working on, that should go inside your flimsy bag, okay? So if you need a flimsy bag, get one because it's so much easier to put your work away. So sometimes after we're done working, we just have these little bits of clay. What do you do with it? So my suggestion is either one, put it inside your Ziploc bag, or you can actually add it to our slip container because it's all the same clay and it will just get smushed up and reused later on.
Your extra clay should be saved by you. Please do not give me your extra clay. If you keep doing that, you will eventually not have any clay to work with. Also, I do suggest checking your bag for holes because sometimes that's how projects dry out.
Now, you can put your project directly into this flimsy bag, like I said, or you can actually put your project on a bat. This is a bat. It's a flat surface. It's covered in plastic wrap. This is so it won't dry your clay out. But you can actually put your artwork right on the bat and then put it inside your flimsy plastic bag, and you're going to actually store it in your shelf. The next step is your slab mat. What do you do with your slab mat? Well, first of all, make sure there's no clay on it. If there's any clay on your slab mat, please take your slab mat to the trash can. Got a trash can right here. And all you got to do is carefully just hit it a couple times just to get the clay to go into the trash. Now, if you notice that your slab mat, for example, right there and there, if you notice that there's clay on your slab mat, please be nice and take a fettling knife and you can actually scrape off the clay into the trash can. You don't have to save the clay, but we just want to make sure that these slab mats stay relatively clean. And then you're going to actually put the slab mat back where it belongs.
Now, we got to clean the tables. If you all help each other clean the tables, this goes so much faster.
Okay, so how do we clean off the table? This table actually has clay on it. So what do you got to do? First of all, any extra little pieces of clay, try to get them off the table. You can actually use your hand just like that. Please do not just put the clay onto the floor. Like I said, you need to actually collect it. This can actually go in the trash. Next, you can actually take a spray bottle, spray the table with some water. You'll need a sponge. The sponge should be wet, so take it to the sink, run it under the water, squeeze out the extra water, and you're going to actually clean off the table. So this is the first step of cleaning the table. You should do this when everything has been removed from the table. So somebody at your group should grab a squeegee, and what you're going to do is actually drag the squeegee across, and you can see right here, this is the residue of the clay with the water. So you can actually take your sponge and soak it up. A sponge is great for soaking up things. This will help clean the table so nicely. Let me show you what happens when you don't use a squeegee to clean off the table. Again, Miss Jazlick will know that you did not squeegee the table because it will probably look like this. You can literally see dust marks created by the sponge. You can see the pathway the student used when they washed off their table. So this table, this part here, needs another swipe with the squeegee. So make sure you take care of that because removing all the dust is so helpful. Again, you can squeegee this direction. You can also squeegee towards you, but don't just leave the puddles of clay water. Actually, just take a sponge just to kind of soak it up and clean up the edges. If I keep seeing these little dust pathways, I will be talking with the people in your group. So you'll find the squeegees along the wall here. And again, you can see where we are storing the sponges. So sponges are here. Spray bottles are right here. Squeegees are along the wall. You only need one squeegee for an entire table. But the very last thing that you do when you're done cleaning up is to wash your hands. Wash your hands at the very last step. Now, when you are washing your hands, if you notice that this particular bucket is full of water, don't add any more water because it actually gets water all over the countertop. It makes a mess. But make sure you get all the clay out of your fingers. I do have nail brushes, so if you want to use this to help clean off your nails, these are great for your nails. I don't suggest using these for your tools. Please use your little sponge to clean off your tools. And make sure you dry your hands before you leave, and that's how you clean up.